If you had to boil it down to a few fundamental things that changed the game for Chili's, what would those be?
The single biggest thing we've done is we've listened to our team members. We have 70,000 chili heads out there, and we know the answers are in the room. We just need to listen to them because they're in our restaurants every single day. That has really fueled a lot of what we've done. We've simplified quite a bit based on their feedback to make their jobs easier and take away tasks that weren't value add. We've really invested back into them. Our team members see that, and then that energy transfers to the guest. I think from a marketing standpoint, we've been on a mission to make Chili's relevant again. For a while, Chili's disappeared from culture, and so we've been really focused both in terms of social media, but also showing up in unexpected ways to put Chili's back in that cultural conversation.
My guest on this week's episode of the CMO podcast is George Felix, the Chief Marketing Officer of Chili's Grill and Bar, that did the amazing work on Old Spice, which grew its business and received just about every single industry accolade. George walks us through his playbook for brand turnarounds, the secret power of listening to frontline team members, and how you make a heritage brand cool again. George, welcome to the CMO podcast here in person.
Yeah.
I'm so happy we're doing it in person. We're looking over a lake at Deloitte University in Westlake, Texas. We were just on stage together about 10 minutes ago in front of an audience of 51 next generation CMOs. It's the 10th year of this. And everyone's here trying to be a better leader, a better person, develop their skills. You worked at P&G as I did. You worked at Yum Brands. These are two companies that are famous for their training. They're called academy companies. So could you reflect back on your time, either at Yum or P&G, when you went through a training experience, whether it's residential like this is or something else that has stayed with you to this day, that has kind of changed the way you think about something, changes the way you lead, or something that just helped you be a better manager, better leader?
Yeah, I think one that jumps out is very early on in my time at P&G as an assistant brand manager. Everybody went through it. It was called Leadership on Paper. And it was the training on how to write the infamous P&G one-pager. And at the time, I remember when I was writing, one-pagers all the time, I don't know if I appreciated it as much. But as I've gotten older and farther along in my career, I find myself referencing not only the literal binder, but the principles of that all the time. And I think it's almost becoming a lost art in terms of how to critically think about a recommendation, but succinctly communicate that and to get buy-in. And I think right now, our company included, a lot of those decisions happen in PowerPoint decks. And, it's really easy to make a 60-page deck because you don't have to think that hard. You can just keep adding material to it, but it's much harder to put all that and take the time to think through it and get it down on one page. So I'd say that's one that has stuck with me, and I try to continue to use, in my day-to-day still.
Do you use it to train your people?
I do try to pass the principles along when I'm looking at recommendations from the team and say, hey, have you thought about this? Or is there a better, maybe a more concise way that we could frame this or phrase it for the audience that we're trying to get bought in?
Well, last year, 2025, you were named the CMO of the Year at the Ad Age Creativity Awards. That's an incredible honor because your competitive set is not people in your category. It's every CMO in the country. So congratulations.
Thank you.
It's an incredible achievement. I don't think anyone 3 years ago would have thought that the Chili's CMO would be getting that kind of award. So could you talk about that evening when you got that award, what you may have shared with the audience, and maybe more importantly, how did you bring it home and bring it back to the team and use it as a way to kind of acknowledge your progress, but also to, inspire everyone to keep going?
It was a great night. I was really happy. I was able to share it I brought my marketing leadership team with me. We had some of our agency partners with us as well. And so honestly, for us, being in the room was like a pretty big accomplishment for us. And that was something that we wanted to celebrate because like you said, 3 years ago, Chili's wasn't even a national advertiser. And so for us to be in the same room as, brands like Nike and Apple and Google and like all these amazing brands doing incredible marketing was a huge win for us. Obviously, being named CMO of the Year and then Chili's being named Brand of the Year made that an incredible night for us. What I shared, then was it was really, the work of the team that we've assembled at Chili's, which I call, a world-class marketing team. And it's a mix of people that were willing to jump on the pirate ship before they knew that we were going to get this thing turned around. And then people that were at Chili's that really bought into the new strategy. Amazing agency partners that have brought a lot of creativity to the brand. And then our leadership team, really embracing that marketing could be a growth function for our brand. But then most importantly, our 70,000, we call ourselves Chili Heads. So we have 70,000 Chili Heads. And, we say all the time, the biggest reason our marketing works is that we have great operators. We have great team members that deliver a great experience. And so I had the opportunity 2 weeks ago. Every year we do an annual conference. So we bring all 1,100 plus general managers together. Mm-hmm. This was a big one. We did it in Vegas because it was our 50th anniversary. And so we have a marketing presentation in front of all of them. I got to share the news that we were named Brand of the Year. And we put the house lights on them because we said, this is really your award. You guys really won this for us because of the great experience they're delivering. So, both of those awards, CMO of the Year and Brand of the Year, I look at as awards for the brand and everybody across the company that's been doing great work.
We're going to talk about your moniker, your reputation as a turnaround CMO in a minute. But I find, at least in my experience, when you're on a business that's buzzing, that people are acknowledging, you're getting the results, the Wall Street notices, it's almost harder, to keep that momentum going. So could you speak to that for a moment? I mean, how you use an event like that, getting that great acknowledgement to say thank you, as you did, gratitude to everyone, but yet, there's more to do.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think if you told me that 3 years ago, I'd be like, oh, that'd be a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. And I think, our CEO, Kevin, does an amazing job of celebrating the wins because it's important to celebrate the wins and the accomplishments that we've had. I mean, we just turned in one of the best years of any restaurant brand in the history of restaurants. And that's not, that's something we want to celebrate. And I tell my team, we're in the good old days. We don't want to look back and feel like we didn't celebrate it. And so we do want to celebrate that. But I think the way that Kevin's framed it and that we've really embraced is we don't want this to be a 3-year case study. We want this to be a dynasty. And so when you look at, we use sports analogies all the time. It's like, look at those teams that have sustained excellence over years. It's because they weren't satisfied. They didn't take their foot off the gas. And so for us, we've been really focused and maniacal about our strategy. Our strategy doesn't change, and it hasn't changed. And I think that's that's rare. I think a lot of times every year it feels like you're rolling out a new strategy. We've really stuck to it. And so not getting bored with the fundamentals, getting that message out that if we continue to execute with excellence, we're going to keep this going and we're going to have that dynasty is important. So I think it's just balancing the celebration of the wins, but also saying, how do we stay hungry and not get bored with the fundamentals?
What would you say? I mean, there's a lot that goes into the turnaround, a lot goes into the kind of year you just talked about. But if you had to boil it down to a few fundamental things that changed the game for Chili's, changed the conversation, changed the results, changed the morale, what would those be?
I think the single biggest thing we've done is we've listened to our team members. And like I said, we have 70,000 Chili Heads out there, and we know the answers are in the room, and we just need to listen to them because they're in our restaurants every single day. They're the closest ones to the guests. They're talking to our guests. And so that has really fueled a lot of what we've done. We've simplified quite a bit based on their feedback to make their jobs easier and take away tasks that weren't value add. We've cut things off the menu, and then we've really invested back into them, not only in terms of labor, but also just if you don't have a well-maintained restaurant, if you showed up to work at an office that wasn't very well maintained, I don't think you'd be that inspired to go deliver a great experience. So we've taken care of our restaurants, we're taking care of our team members, and we're making the food and the drinks better. And so I think they see that, and our team members see that, and then that energy transfers to the guest. And so that makes the experience so much better. So that's been the biggest thing. I think from a marketing standpoint, we've been on a mission to make Chili's relevant again. And back in its heyday, in the 90s and early 2000s, Chili's was in culture, in sync, sang the Baby Back Ribs jingle, and Fat Bastard was singing it, and Austin Powers, and, The Office, and all of that stuff. And for a while, Chili's disappeared from culture. And so we've been really focused both in terms of social media, but also just showing up in unexpected ways to put Chili's back in that cultural conversation.
We were in front of the audience, as I said, about a half hour ago. And I asked the audience how many have been in Chili's in the last 6 months. And a lot of them stood up. And then I asked them why. And you were there, you heard it. But there's a lot of kid stuff. Like my kids ask for it. My kids have fun there. There's games for my kids. So talk about that as a driver. It's part of your nostalgia, I guess. It's part of what's in there. What are you doing to keep that relevant, top of mind? To be sure, when the kids want to go out, that's the one they're asking for.
Yeah, they're in a lot of cases, the kids are the decision makers. Right?
Totally.
So we want them to have a great time. So I think it's been really interesting. There's been like two groups, I would say, in particular that we've been focused on. I think one is people of like my age where we're reintroducing Chili's to them. When I took this job and I said, I'm going to Chili's, usually a big smile would show up on people's faces. They'd be like, oh my gosh, I love Chili's. I used to go there after football games or whatever. But then the next thing out of their mouth was like, I haven't been there in 10 years or 15 years or whatever. We had to change that. And so reintroducing those people who loved Chili's, giving them a reason to come back. And then by nature, they're taking their kids and giving them the experience they had when they were kids. And so for us, if we can, we say the fundamentals of casual dining are great food and beverage, hospitality, and a fun atmosphere. It's not that hard, but it's hard to execute. And so if we can deliver that, then, that's where we want to be. We want to be the easy button, come as you are, have a great meal. And so I think we're starting to win back families and kids are then therefore asking their parents to take them back. The other group that's interesting that we're starting to, I wouldn't even say reintroduce, it's almost introduced for the first time, is more of a Gen Z audience. So maybe even a little older than the younger kids, but, and that's really been through TikTok and through social media. They've really found things about our brand that we haven't necessarily been the ones to push, but they've really, grabbed onto. So one item in particular, it's the triple dipper. It's been on our menu for a long time. It's an appetizer sampler. It's not a novel concept. You get to pick 3 things and there's dipping sauces. But, this is probably 18 months or 2 years ago, we were pushing a totally different message. We were pushing a new burger. It's called the Big Smasher. And, we work with influencers and all that. And then our social team noticed, man, there's a lot of TikToks popping up of people ordering the triple dipper and taking our fried mozzarella and like pulling the cheese to see how far they can do these cheese pulls. And we were like, that's kind of random. And we thought it would be just a short-lived thing. But thankfully, our social team's great. And they said, well, what if we try to pour some gas on the fire? And so we worked with more influencers to kind of encourage that. And next thing you know, 100 million views and, TikToks are out there. And it's like, it's going crazy. We put out some secret menu items. We push along. And now a couple of years later, it's still going. And I think the thing I learned from that is like, as much as like the old way was marketers put the message out and it was one way, we have to be okay with our fans kind of finding their own ways to love our brand and letting go a little bit. And in this case, if you would have told us 2 years ago that the triple dipper was going to be a big source of growth, we would have said, you're crazy. And now it's a huge part. It's 14% of our total sales is that one item.
Wow.
It's crazy. So I think we've just learned there's a couple audiences out there that have really helped drive the success we've had. And so we're just trying to tap into that and help fuel the fire.
You're a very consumer-centric organization, and you're also very close to your chili heads, the 70,000 of them in the restaurants. I mean, that's a lot of people say they are. You guys really act it. And I was in a conversation with you a few months ago with your CEO, and we talked about how your team noticed that people are driving through fast food and holding up their receipts, and it's $50, $45, $60, whatever. And you said, hey, we may be able to offer a better experience at the same price.
Yeah.
So can you talk about, the larger principle, how do you keep your organization so consumer/customer centric and acting on it, and having the organization come forward with insights like you just talked about with the mozzarella, like, hey, there's a lot of people spending money in fast food and they're putting it on social. We may have an answer to that.
I think it's just the mindset that you've got to be in it. And in our case, that's the restaurant industry. That means you got to be in restaurants and you got to want to be out there and you got to want to be trying new food. And so we've got a team chat set up for marketing, and like people are always posting about new offers that are out there, new LTOs, new whatever. And it's just like, whether it has anything to do with what we're going to launch or not, I think just that general curiosity. And like, now I love that my team pays attention to all the earnings calls of other concepts, because they're like, there's so much that we can learn about what they're doing and what they're seeing, and we can apply it to us. So I think just that instilling that idea that like when you work in the restaurant industry, like that curiosity is really important. So I think that's been a big part of it, and encouraging that and sharing that's important. I think in the case of that specific instance, our social team's amazing, and they just have their finger on the pulse of everything going on across platforms. And I think for them, they're always looking to see what's the angle for Chili's. And what I love about that is they don't force it. There's a lot of things they let go, because it's like nobody's looking for Chili's opinion on this topic. But that was one for sure that they noticed and said, hang on, like we've got something here. The 3 for Me $10.99 is a really good deal, but it's even better deal when you realize that you're paying the same amount when you go through a drive-through or more. And so they had some fun with it on social. They called it the 3 for Me challenge, and that got a huge response. So we were basically just like, hey, post your receipt from a drive-through, and we'll get you a 3 for Me gift card, right? And it was just to kind of start to see if there's something there. Huge response. We were trending on X for a couple of days with that. And so then that led to giving that to our agencies. Our agencies really came up with a really strong strategic angle at it. And we've been really just kind of going at fast food for the last couple of years. And, it's a pretty simple concept. And I think what makes it resonate is that, how sometimes as marketers, we kind of create something that we think is like an insight, but it's not really. This is like a real consumer frustration point. Like fast food has completely broken their promise to customers about being the most affordable and the most convenient. And so all of a sudden, would you rather have a full service experience with better food and a fun atmosphere versus, a drive-through experience in a bag that may or may not deliver on what you're looking for about the same price? And you're seeing people really just understand that, wow, that Chili's deal really stacks up pretty well. So, but I think it's just encouraging the idea that good ideas can come from anywhere, and that people can be curious about what's going on, and encouraging that has led to us sharing a lot of those insights.
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of questions these days about organizational design and how to set up a marketing organization for the future, with the impact of AI and social channels. So you're obviously doing it well. So is there any insight you have? I mean, is your social team internally organized? Is it dispersed? Is it outsourced or insourced?
It's a mix. We have an internal team, and then we work with agency partners. And so I'm a big believer in agencies and bringing in that external perspective, not just on social, but on creative and strategy. And so from a social standpoint, up until just very recently, it was literally 2 people on our team, which is pretty remarkable given the impact they've had. So Luz Bickert and Jack Haley were, they're a powerhouse. And now we're adding two people underneath them to really ramp up our work with influencers and really be able to respond more from a community standpoint. And then we work with 2 agencies. One is Benchmob and one is Influencer, and they do great work for us. So I think the combination of having that team in-house, and one thing I'll say about Jack on the social team, his dad worked at Chili's. He was an executive that's in the Chili's Hall of Fame. So he's a 2nd generation Chili head. He worked at Chili's. He was a bartender in college. Like, he knows the restaurant. And so there is something where he really understanding this brand and understanding what it's like to be a team member in Chili's, I think goes a long way to helping us have a great tone of voice there. So I think that mix helps us to have the external perspective, but also have that deep knowledge of the brand in-house.
This is your 3rd CMO role. You've developed a moniker of the turnaround CMO. Someone wrote a story about you with that. I think it's the headline. And it is true. I mean, the last 4 brands you worked on were not terribly relevant. The business wasn't as healthy as it could be. And you and your team turned that around. You've done it 4 times. And I know you believe the Chili's one has been the most fun. But I'd just like to ask you, do you look for that, a turnaround assignment? Or does it sort of come to you? Or is it serendipity?
Well, I joke with my wife sometimes it'd be a lot better to be known as the CMO that comes into a great situation and makes it better. But yeah, I think, not as catchy. But I think it started obviously with Old Spice. That was my first assignment, really in marketing out of business school. I interned on the brand and then was an assistant brand manager there. And
this was at P&G, your first assignment at P&G.
Yeah, that's right. I learned so much in that. I mean, between the education you get at P&G, the education I got working with an agency like Wieden+Kennedy, and that being a true turnaround and getting to see the importance of a brand, purpose and a brand strategy and positioning and how creativity can solve business problems. Like, I learned so much in that. And then the next opportunity I had when I left Procter & Gamble was on KFC, which part of the pitch, which, Kevin, who I worked with on Old Spice, and then he brought me over to KFC was...
This is Kevin Hochman, who's your CEO now.
Correct. And so when Kevin was pitching it to me, he's like, let's get the band back together and do what we did on Old Spice, but on a brand 10 times the size. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good pitch and pretty exciting. And so now all of a sudden we're starting to develop a playbook on how to do these turnarounds. And so then Pizza Hut, which is part of the Yum Brands portfolio, was in a similar situation a few years later. Kevin got tapped to also manage that brand in addition to KFC, brought me over. So, I wouldn't say we were necessarily seeking them out. It was just, I think after that, it was that jump from Old Spice to KFC where we started to develop the playbook. And then obviously, I had a little time where I went to Tinder and he was still at Yum.
We're going to talk about the Tinder chapter in a minute.
Yeah, good. And then, we got back together here at Chili's. It was like, wow, okay, we have a really good sense for a brand like this, the things we got to go do. We could skip a lot of steps that we, maybe have made mistakes on in the past and really get after it pretty quickly. So there is something fun to it, though, I will say, like, especially on heritage brands like the ones we've worked on, really, digging into the DNA, understanding the brand and reinvigorating it is really pretty rewarding. And now we've got a really good playbook on how to do it.
Let's go to that playbook. If you were to write a book with Kevin, maybe you should. Actually, we've got four stories here, which are fun.
Pretty good idea, yeah.
Happy to help you with
it.
Yeah,
I was going to say, Jim, well, I'll have to talk to someone. I wish I knew someone who written some books.
No, but talk about that. If you were to lay out the framework, the playbook, what would that be? What would the chapters be in this book about turnarounds?
The first one, we call it digging through the attic. So I'd say that's like the first step. And that's our way of saying you got to dig deep into the history of the brand and really understand it. And that takes different forms. On Old Spice, you remember P&G had those archives, which I still think is one of the coolest parts of P&G. You can pull archives of, historical documents and ads and all these things from packaging from all the brands, but really understanding, what is the brand all about? And, back in the day, what were they talking about? And what's the essence of the brand? Each brand's a little bit different in that sense. There are literal archives of KFC, of all the Colonel's old stuff. And at Chili's, it was more about literally talking to the guys. They called themselves the hamburger hippies.
The founders
of the brand, and really understanding why they started Chili's in the first place. They didn't dream it to be a chain restaurant. It was just, they wanted to make a great place where you could come get great burgers and cold drinks at a good price and then just have a good time. And so just understanding all that's super important, because as you build your brand positioning, you want to be drawing on the past, but figuring out what makes that brand relevant today in today's world. And I think once you've got that brand, that digging through the attic and the brand positioning, we're obviously, Kevin and I are both P&G guys, so we're going to go to the brand positioning and make sure that's really clear. Then I think it's all about aligning the organization and keeping it as simple as possible. And I think, fortunately for us, Kevin's a master at simplicity. He will not tolerate complexity. And so our strategy from day one has been the same, which is great. For 3 years, we have not changed strategies. And so, just delivering great food and beverage in awesome hospitality and a fun atmosphere and investing in our team members. It's as simple as that. And it's one of those things where if you get that clarity of the strategy and you can repeat it over and over again in an organization with 70,000 people, over time, it really starts to sink in and you get that muscle memory. And then from there, from a marketing standpoint, we're off to the races on how are we going to do something that really makes our brand stand out. Right. And so it's a mix of fundamentals of, food advertising, which is craveable food, and making sure it's distinctive and unmistakably Chili's, and combining that with that kind of reaction of oh my God, did you see what Chili's just did? And like, or did you see who they partnered with? Or, all of that stuff that gets people buzzing about the brand. And so once we get that going, Kevin's really great on the operational side. And I mean, he's great on the brand side too. I kind of handle the brand side. We've got a great team now in place at Chili's that has, whether it's operations, finance, supply chain, IT, and we go.
Those 4 things you talked about could be seen as table stakes, but you guys have sort of made it into a point of difference, right?
That's right. It's
because a
so
lot of
true.
brands say, if I can own the category benefit in my voice, that leads to a big brand. So can you talk about how you made those 4 seemingly sort of generic things yours?
They are the fundamentals of a great restaurant experience. And whether you're at a fine dining establishment or whether you're at Chili's, like if you think about just your own experience when you go out, like how are you going to judge a good night, right? Was the food great? Did you have good drinks? Was the atmosphere lively and buzzy, or was it kind of dead? Was your service good? Was it memorable? Did they take care of you? So it's not that there's any secrets there. It's just, are you willing to like really invest in it? Really like not just pay lip service to it, but really go in. And I think that's the difference. And I think that's why we're not really shy about saying that's what we're focused on, because it's not a big secret. It's just, I don't know that other concepts are as willing to go invest the time and the money to go listen, but then truly invest and back it up with hundreds of millions of dollars investments in these things to make them better and commitments to do it for the long term.
I've heard you say that this one is the most fun. They were all fun, but this one is the most fun. Why is that? Is it because you've been through 3? Is it something about your team, the category itself? I mean, I guess you were in a similar category in KFC and Pizza Hut, but this one is a little bit elevated.
Yeah, it's a couple reasons. I think the brand and the culture have been phenomenal. I think the fact that we've taken all the things we've learned from these past experiences and been able to apply them even quicker here has been really rewarding. But also the culture of this company, the Chili Head culture is so real. And there were so many people that have been here for 20, 25, 30, 35 years. And to hear them say like, I've got like, this is what it used to be like. This is like the good old days, or like, I've got pride in the pepper, or like all these things, like they just feel so like being able to be a part of restoring that, I think has been super rewarding. And then to be honest, it's the people that I'm doing it with. And obviously Kevin's a big part of that, but also getting to build the team, and bring people, like really important people in my career and my life over 3 people in particular. Jesse Johnson, Steve Kelly, and Mary Ellen Scott. They're people I've worked with in the past, and they were all willing to come on board, and they believed in the vision that we had, and they've been a huge part of why we've succeeded. And then this whole crew of Chili Heads that were already there, but they bought into the strategy that, it's hard when new leadership comes in and you're saying a lot of different things, and there's a group of people that really believed in that. And now, like getting to come to work every day with people that you genuinely enjoy spending time with, it's the best. So we're having a great time.
You talked about agencies a moment ago and how you believe in them. You're really good at working with them, right? Helping them maximize their potential. They want to work with you. They feel like they do their best work. So could you talk about how you develop those skills?
Well, a lot of it came early on. So at Procter & Gamble, and I think Jim, you're responsible for a lot of the training that happens there in terms of how do you work with creative partners. And the best training I got was really working with Wieden+Kennedy, because they were different than your typical agency that P&G had at the time. They really challenged you. They were not shy about their opinions, but they were all rooted in really great strategic work and great creative work. And so the people that I worked with at Wieden+Kennedy, I credit with giving me almost like a second MBA in terms of like how to harness great creative, but do so in a way that gives room for the creative, but also meets the needs of the brand. And so that experience, it was challenging because I didn't always know how to work with them, or I didn't know how to respond to some of the ideas they presented. But getting to know the strategists and the account people and the creative people on those teams really informed for me, how to use creativity to solve business problems in the future. And so I've been fortunate to work with some of the best agencies in the world and some of the best people at those agencies over time, whether it's Wieden+Kennedy or Mischief, or now we work with an agency, John Marshall and Daughters. Like, these creative teams and strategy teams are so good. I look at my job as like, how do I give them the right brief, get out of the way enough to let them have creative freedom, and then come back in to shape the idea to get to what we need. And so it's been a lot of fun, but I got to credit the team, the groups that I've worked with have been just phenomenal.
Now, Wieden was a very powerful experience for you as a young guy. As you think about how you work with agencies today, how you evaluate creative, if you had to boil it down to one or two lessons they taught you that have stuck, what would they be?
The importance of a good brief. So, early on, I didn't fully understand the process as well. And you could really start to see that, like, what I think great creative agencies almost always have a great strategic arm to them. And it's usually the less sexy part of it, and they don't get as much credit. But in those cases, in the case of Wieden+Kennedy, like, the strategy side of that is so important, and it really can't work without great briefs. And they would oftentimes like help like polish our briefs to get them to a place where then the creative could do their magic. And so that was one of like the importance of a great brief, and the importance that if you give them clear guardrails and a clear sandbox, it actually opens up creativity, I think was a big lesson. And then the idea of how do you provide feedback on creative, but also work with the creatives to say, even if you love the idea, if it's not fully there, how do you nurture the idea so that you enable them to keep that creative spirit through the process? Versus, I think sometimes people take things a little literally early on in the process, and you end up losing a lot of great ideas. Whereas even if an idea is 40% there, that could turn into the best idea you have, but you have to be willing to work with them and partner with them along the way to kind of see it across the finish line.
What's the riskiest idea that you got behind early and you learned the most from? My guess is it was with Wieden, but it might be something else.
Yeah, I was with Wieden. I mean, honestly, I know this will sound like maybe cliche looking back on it, but the man your man could smell like, it sounds weird because like in hindsight, you might say, well, what was risky about that? But
the famous Man on the Horse,
Old Spice
ad
that's
from
right.
What, 2010?
10, I guess it launched 2010. Yeah. That one, we were scrambling because we were trying to, defend against Dove for Men's launch. And so we didn't have a ton of time. We were kind of briefing in a, unplanned creative brief. And the idea, they presented a couple different ideas, and we actually bought the other idea. And I've never seen an agency do this. They came back the next day and unsold the idea we bought and said, we sold you the wrong idea, or put differently, you bought the wrong idea. But they took ownership to say, we don't think we presented this other idea as well as we could have. We want to get another crack at it. And so we went with them on it, and we trusted them, and then we made it. And they were adamant that if you remember that shot, it was done. It was a oneer. It was one take. Like, it had to be done. It wasn't spliced together. It had to be done in one continuous take. And so it took like 2 days. I can't remember how many takes they took, but it took like 80 or 90 takes for them to get it right. Because there was one part of it that's CGI, but most of it was done practically, right? The sweater dropping on him and him landing on the horse, all that was one take. And so then I'll never forget, we're sitting in a conference room in Cincinnati. They're in Portland, Oregon. And so we're on the phone, and then they explain everything for the rough cut. And then we watched the link. It was like, at the time, it felt like he was talking a million miles an hour, and you weren't going to be able to understand anything he said. And so we're all just looking at each other in the room. I'm an ABM, so I got my brand manager,
yeah.
my director, all these people in the room. There's probably 4 of us in the room, and we're just silence. No one says a word. We're looking at each other. No one knows what to do.
Thank God we didn't have Zoom back then.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then we hear, the phone, we hear, you guys still there? Everything okay? And we're like, oh, hang on. We watch it again. And we're just like, we're legit worried. We're like, oh my God, what have we done? Because there was no backup plan. This was it. And so we get back on, we tell them all our concerns. We're like, hey, do you think you could slow his voice down? Do you think you can edit something different in here? They're like, well, no. Like, it is what it is. And like, this is the one take we got, and like, all this. And so we were terrified. And so my brand manager, James Moorhead, and the two other ABMs, Jim Urbitis and Mauricio O'Connell, we went to, you remember Rock Bottom Brewery in Fountain Square. And we took 2 laptops and we put our credit card down at the bar. 2 people went to the back of the bar and 2 people went to the front of the bar. One group took women. We bought them. We said, we buy you a beer if you come. We said we were from a research company. We just want you to watch this commercial and tell us what you think. The other group took guys. And we just watched people watch the ads separately, because the whole point of this ad was we wanted to talk to men and women for the first time.
Yeah.
We just watched people watch the ad to get their reactions, see what they thought. And at the end of the night, we came back, compared notes, and we were like, okay, I think we got something here. Like it was doing what we thought we did. I think we were just so nervous because we hadn't seen anything like that, and it was so different. But sure enough, creatively, they were spot on, and that helped us, give us the confidence to say, yeah, I think we got something here. But there's no chance we knew it was going to do what it did. Like we thought we had something interesting. We thought it was going to be disruptive, but for it to still be something that Old Spice is using 15 years later and has kept that brand on top for so long. There's
one of the best ads in the history of advertising.
Yeah, that we almost probably killed because we were, we didn't know. And
when you were in that bar, it was a great idea, by the way. It's a good idea for anyone. When you're in that bar showing, what was the first reaction?
It was, thank God, it was laughter. Like it was, I mean, on both sides. That's what we were worried about, was like, is it going to resonate with both men and women? And it was, you could see they were laughing at different parts of it, right? Like, guys thought certain parts of the ad were funnier and women thought other parts were funny, but like it was landing with both, which is the needle we were trying to thread. And it was quite an experience.
How did you premiere it? When did it first air?
Well, that was another big decision. So Old Spice is a pretty small brand. So the debate was, because we knew Dove for Men, the whole reason we were doing it was Dove for Men was launching in the Super Bowl. And so the question was, do we try and launch this thing in the Super Bowl? But basically that would eat up most of the budget. So it'd kind of be like run it once and then hope for the best. Or do we run it, just more like put it out around the same time, but run it for, a more typical campaign length. And we decided for the latter. So we decided not to do it in the Super Bowl. But the funny thing is, this really dates me, but like right before we launched it, in the months leading up to that, was when we launched the Old Spice Facebook page. It was the first time when brands...
Yeah, well, it was like 2010.
Yeah, when brands were having Facebook pages, right? And we launched it, and it was before you paid for any of this. There was no paid post. It was just you post. And if you followed the page, you would see it in your timeline. So we launched the Old Spice Facebook page. We launched the Old Spice YouTube channel, right? And so we posted it the Friday before the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, Friday or Saturday before the Super Bowl on Facebook and YouTube. And it got passed around so much that weekend that by Monday morning, we were included in the Super Bowl roundups, which is amazing. It was like the best like ROI ever, because most people think it is we joke on we still have an Old Spice text chat, like text group. We still joke every year when they rank the best Super Bowl commercials, that is inevitably in the Ad Age and Ad Week lists, and it technically didn't run in the Super Bowl. So, it's one of those fun things that makes for good stories.
I knew that story pretty well, but I learned some new things today.
All right. I'm glad to hear it.
The bar session I had known.
Well, James Moorhead was
full of lessons.
Yeah, he was a scrappy guy.
Yeah, it's full of lessons. So listen, in doing my homework on you, I saw on a lot of social posts about your marketing academy, the Chili's Marketing Academy. So it looks like a series you do, and it must be resonating because people are posting or having fun with it. So can you talk about what that ritual is and how that's part of your training and development program at Chili's?
It's something where, like you said, I was really fortunate to work at companies like P&G and Yum, which are, like you said, academy type companies. And so I realized as we were bringing more people in, to the marketing team and talking with them, for a lot of them, this is their first experience in marketing. And this is the first company they've worked at. And Brinker's a great company, but we don't have the resources of a Yum or a P&G to have that kind of infrastructure for that type of training. And so I just thought, well, how can I help develop these marketers to give them a little flavor of the type of training I got? And so, we got to brand everything. We're marketers, so we call it the Marketing Academy. And it's really just meant to be a time where we get together as a team. I'd say probably 8 times a year, maybe 8 to 10, and it doesn't have anything to do with like the specific like day-to-day business. And it's really just meant to be either internal or external speakers that are meant to just broaden your horizon, teach you about something that might relate directly to work, or might be something outside of work, but just something interesting. And so it's been a lot of fun. From an internal perspective, we had one of our chefs on our culinary team do a whole thing on tasting and understanding how that works and the science behind it. And we got to, just taste different things. And it was super interesting. I did one on normalizing failure because we have a lot of new, younger team members and more junior in their careers. And it's funny how when our bios get published in places, it just looks like, man, we just never hit a bump in the road, right? And it's like, it couldn't be farther from the truth. Like I've learned more from all the mistakes I've made over time. And so it was just letting them know, if early in your career, like embrace that failure is going to happen. It's just how you deal with it and what you learn from it. But then we've been, really lucky to have some amazing speakers externally. Marcus Collins, who's one of my favorite people
from Michigan, University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. His book, For the Culture, is amazing. So he came and spoke to our team early on, just after he'd written that book, to talk about what it means to be a brand and culture and what does that really mean. We had Roxy Young from Reddit come talk about her platform. We had Michael Mulvihill from Fox talk about like really interesting things, like how they think about sports programming and like how they draft games for college football, like, which is amazing. I think they should televise the draft of like how they pick which games they're going to televise. And then we had Cindy Davis from our board of directors, who's been a board mentor to me. She used to be the president of Nike Golf. She's on the board of Deckers, which owns Hoka and UGG. And so she was sharing amazing stories. She used to work for Arnold Palmer, and like she's golfed with Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan. And like she's shared these amazing lessons from her career. So just, we're always just kind of on the lookout for things that can just help, teach our team new lessons about life or about marketing, on top of the things that we're doing day to day.
Which guest has been, of those that you mentioned, maybe other ones, was most interesting to you personally?
I would say Cindy, for the reason the story she told and the lessons she left us with were so like, it was the best combination of like so interesting, the people that the stories were about, but so practical to the business that we're in. And so she talked about how she has the story when she was leading Nike Golf of like, Tiger Woods, the shirt wasn't fitting him right. And he like actually like poked a hole in the shirt to like make it sit the way he wanted to on national TV. And like, like where the ideas, like someone wrote in and, told her about this, and then they changed the shirt and how good ideas can come from everywhere. Or Arnold Palmer, all the way until, he passed, he was essentially still trying to get better at golf, and how Tiger Woods and his house had this huge trophy room, but like there were 2 empty trophy cases because he always was expecting to win more. And so like the lesson for the team was, there is no finish line. And I think that's something when we talk about the success we've had, how do we stay hungry? How do we keep moving forward? So it was just like, and she's just such a great storyteller. So it was for me, a really impactful session.
I've talked to you before about your special relationship with your CEO. You talked about a board member. You have a great relationship with Cindy. A lot of CMOs don't have those kind of relationships with their board or their CEO. How have you built it? I mean, what do you do? What practice do you follow? I mean, what's your mentality? How can you help others? Because that's really important, right? If you don't have a good relationship with your CEO and your board, you're done.
I'm fortunate. So obviously, Kevin and I have a long history together. And so that helps in this case that, we obviously are on the same page. I'll credit him though. I think his philosophy on how our leadership team interacts with our board is he wants us to have a good relationship with the board. He wants us to be in board meetings and actively presenting to them and interacting with them. And so we get to show up and present the work that all of our functions are doing directly to the board, which helps instill confidence in the board and in what we're doing. And then, he took it one step further, and we get board mentors, that we get paired up with. And in my case with Cindy, it makes sense because of her background. She has a strong background in branding and really understanding that. And so for me, that's been great. Whenever the board's in town, Cindy's really generous with her time. She'll make time for us to have one-on-one conversations. I can pick her brain. She can share experience from the company she works at or the other boards that she's on right now. And so that, I think, has helped. I can pick her brain, but also our entire board. There's another member of our board, Frances Allen, who has experience in the restaurant industry. And we were trying to improve our fries, and she'd worked at concepts that have really craveable fries. And I was like, Frances, I need to understand the Dell. And she took so much time just to go through everything from the operations to how you can get them more consistently seasoned and all of that detail. So just the willingness of our board. I think we have a board that's very willing to spend time with us and get to know us. So all the way through the chair of our board, Joe DePinto, it's been awesome just to get to spend time with them. We go out to dinner with them. And so it's not just about work, but we've gotten to know them on a personal level too.
I want to flip to your career path for a moment. You have one chapter in your resume that I don't understand. So, I get it. You go from P&G to Yum Brands to Chili's, but you took a little detour in 2021 to go to Tinder between Yum and Chili's.
Did.
So yeah. What were you thinking? Was it?
Well, I'll be honest. When the recruiter call came in, I laughed as my first reaction when I heard the brand. And that is not something I'd recommend for other people to do. But then after that, I was looking at that point, I had a feeling I was looking for a change. I'd been at Yum for almost 6 years and was looking for something outside of the franchise model. And so the call came in. It was interesting. I was interested in tech. I'd never worked at a tech company, and I knew I didn't want to move to either coast. We wanted to make Dallas our home. And so as we were talking, this was during COVID, they said, why don't you just talk with the CEO? Just see what happens. And man, we hit it off. His name's Jim Lanzone. And we just clicked. It was one of those conversations where it felt like it was 10 minutes, but it was an hour, and it just it was really easy. We had a few more conversations, and, his pitch to me was Tinder was about to be 10 years old. The product had never evolved. Basically, it was the same experience it was when it started. And he was a product guy, and he had a vision for what he could do for that. And then the brand in those 10 years never really owned its brand narrative, never had a true brand positioning. And I need someone that can do that. And so that was the pitch. It was a left turn for me, but one that just felt exciting and just felt like something I needed to try. It could have been partly because of COVID, there's obviously that was a different time. And so went for it. And, it was I don't regret going there at all. I learned a ton. Being at a tech company is so different than the type of companies that I'd worked at. Marketing is not the center of the hub there. It's product and engineering, and rightfully so. And I didn't mind that. I liked the idea of how does marketing best support that? The idea that you can push an update out and instantly the experience changes for everybody. I think that's super interesting. And then most importantly, when I told them early on, I'm like, I met my wife at a dorm party freshman year of college. That was before dating apps. So I've never been on a dating app. So it was a whole new world. And I think there's something to marketing a product that you don't use, because you have to come at it with a completely different lens and really make sure you understand the consumer and the experience. And so I was on, again, it was during COVID. So I was on Zoom focus groups with college students a few times a week for the first, couple months. And it was fascinating just to learn just about their daily lives and how they use Tinder and how they use other apps and what the frustrations were and what was working. And so I learned a ton. The people were awesome as well. I had a great team. Actually, you've talked with Nicole Parlapiano. She was on my team. Yeah, great. She was amazing.
Tubi now.
Yeah. Steph Danzy, who's still there. The team was great. And so I met a ton of great people. The mission, people really believed in the mission. We defined the brand. We thought the brand purpose could be, to keep the magic of human connection alive in a time, especially at a time when people are having, difficulty connecting. So I learned a ton. Jim ended up leaving probably six months or so after I got there. He's now the CEO of Yahoo, and he's crushing it out there. And so, after a little over a year, it was just kind of clear that the direction and what they're looking for out of marketing was different than what I stepped into. And so I ended up leaving, not really knowing what I was going to do next. And then, of course, I reached out to Kevin for some advice, and then, the rest is history.
And he was at Chili's at the time.
He was actually not yet, but he was in the process of kind of making that move. And so, not knowing it, then a few months later, ended up rejoining him. So yeah, that, I know it feels like a big left turn, but to me, it was a great experience. I learned a ton. It didn't go exactly the way the way that I thought it would, but I wouldn't change anything.
Seems like a good call.
Yeah.
Right. Broaden your experience. You got to work with Kevin again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That might not have happened if you hadn't gone.
I know. It's so weird, like sliding doors moments of like timing and everything. So, things all work out for a reason.
Now I want to flip to the creative brief. And my first question is, and I have some confidential information from a trustworthy source here. And I've learned that you and your daughter have listened together to every song from Taylor Swift in album order. So that's a lot of time with your daughter listening to Taylor Swift. So tell me about that. What was that experience like?
It's been a lot of fun. So my daughter Eleanor she's just about to turn 15 next week, and so we bonded over Taylor Swift. I took her to. I was lucky enough to get tickets to the Eras tour. So my wife is not a Swiftie. My 12-year-old son is not a Swiftie. I was I'd say like a half Swiftie at the time, and my daughter was big into it. So I took her and two of her friends, and we had a blast. It was like the best show, like unbelievable. Like I couldn't believe it. It was like just everything about it, like the detail, the performance, like the stage, everything about it was amazing. So after that became like something that we just really kind of continued to bond over. And so we decided that before the next album came out, we were going to listen to every Taylor Swift song together in order. And so, but the only time we could do that was when it was just the two of us, right? Because if Mary or Wilson were around, that was a no-go. So we basically used any time we were in the car, which was like taking her to like her water polo practices or like games or anything where it was just the two of us. We would pull out the phone. She had like a running note that we were keeping track of where we left off, which album, which song, and we'd restart, every time. And it took us a few months, but we got it done in time before the last album came out. And it was a ton of fun just for like to hear like why she liked certain albums and why she liked certain eras or certain songs and why I liked them. And it just, more than anything for me, Taylor Swift has been a great way to connect with Eleanor on a deeper level. And now like we're so excited about the new album, and I listened to the podcast, and we were, talking about that all week, and it's just been a lot of fun.
Have you listened to the podcast yet?
Oh yeah.
I haven't yet.
Yeah.
I have to.
It's a good listen. The fact that she's never done a podcast before is crazy. So just hearing her talk about stuff that you normally don't get to was pretty fascinating.
So did you agree on the best album or the best song for you?
We did not.
No.
I'm like a 1989. That's my jam. I like those bops, like they're, I'm excited that the new album's it sounds like gonna be kind of similar to 1989, but Eleanor is different. Her faves were a little bit different, but it was fun nonetheless.
And so you stopped now and then and just talked about each song and why and what it was about. So you just didn't listen. You had conversations.
Well, like during the song, I'd like, cause a lot of them I hadn't heard before. Cause so like as the song was playing, I'd be like, I'm not sure. And she's like, just wait. And then,
good idea.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. So it was
a way to talk to a 15-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. It was great. And she was, a lot of times, I'm sure you could relate to this. A lot of times when you're driving your kids around, sometimes they're really engaged and want to talk, and other times not so much. But that was like, pretty guaranteed way that all those car trips were going to be pretty fun. So we'd both look forward to it.
So beyond Taylor Swift, what are your other passions outside work?
I love to travel. That's something that I was fortunate as a kid that we traveled a lot. My parents are immigrants from India. And so every other summer we would go to India to see all of our relatives and spend 4 to 6 weeks there. And then in the off summers, my dad was passionate about seeing the world. Like as a kid, he never got to travel, like really see the world. And he really wanted he wanted to see it, but he wanted to show us the world. And so I was very fortunate to do a lot of traveling as a kid. And that kind of put the bug in me. And so I love to travel, and we now travel a lot as a family, and our kids, like we started traveling with them internationally pretty early on. And so that's just something that I love to do. I am an avid sports fan, love sports, Notre Dame football, my number one passion as an alum, but really any sports. And now my son is kind of a sports fanatic with me. And so that's been really fun to share with him. I play tennis. Love eating out, love restaurants. Obviously, I'm in the restaurant industry, but love trying new restaurants and just going out with friends or just date nights with my wife. And now eating out with the kids. My son's not the most adventurous eater, so we don't go to as many places as a full family, but love eating out.
Let's stay with Notre Dame football for a minute. I hear if they win the national championship this year, that you're going to get a dog. Do I have that right?
Man, you have done some deep digging, Jim. Okay, so I am the holdup in my family on getting a dog. I have kindly told my family that I have only so much love to give, and I love the three of them so much that there's no more love to give. Yeah, I know. It's really, the pressure is mounting, and so the last, Notre Dame's been close the last, a couple times in the last 5 or 6 years, and so I said, hey, here we go. If Notre Dame wins it all, that would be like the best thing for me. I would absolutely love that.
Share the love of the dog.
We will get a dog. More love will be created. We can get a dog. And so now Eleanor Wilson was already very invested in Notre Dame winning. Mary, being an alum also, she went to Notre Dame, also invested. Now Eleanor, she was invested, but now she's very invested in Notre Dame winning. So yes, if Notre Dame wins a national championship, I've now said it publicly to all of your listeners, we will get a dog.
I should let our audience know we were having a Zoom call, you and I, to talk about this event you were coming to. We were just on stage at Deloitte University. You had bring your daughter to work day or something like that.
It was like just for me because she likes to come to work once a summer.
All right, so she was just
bring my daughter to work.
Okay, well, but she was on the Zoom call with
She was. I was
I had the audacity to ask her to write me an email after. We had to say, what question should I ask your dad at the podcast?
And she clearly followed up.
She came back with Taylor Swift and the dog.
Okay. I gave her your email.
Mr. Stengel.
Oh, nice. I gave her your email.
Very sweet.
But I was like, it's a good opportunity to see if she's going to follow up. And I'm glad she did.
She did. And I told her I was going to include it in the podcast. And she thanked me and make sure she listens to it.
Okay. All right. Well, you've added a new listener.
So, George, this is coming. What's the first brand you remember growing up in Toledo, right? That made an impact on you?
Transformers. Yeah. I was crazy about Transformers as a kid, like just the toys themselves and like how they would change. And then the show, I think it was like the first brand that I saw like showing up in like different ways, right? It was like the toy, the show, then a movie, going to the movie theater. So it was like, to me, it was like blew my mind and just loved it.
Still a fan? Keep the toys?
I kept them for a while and I wish I would have kept them.
So when will you be in Chili's next and what will you order?
I'll be in Chili's definitely later this week. Our board of directors is great. We love to make sure they're experiencing Chili's and they love to eat at Chili's. So we'll be out with them, I guess, Wednesday night. And I would typically get a big smasher, but we just redid our baby back ribs. They're bigger ribs, a new way to cook them. They're smoked in our kitchens and then finished with this amazing crust. So I think I might have to go baby back ribs.
Judy, our producer, is nodding and smiling. Is that where we're going tonight, Judy?
I love it.
So, George, who's been the most inspiring person in your life?
I would say my dad. So my dad passed away almost 20 years ago. But he, just like him, he was a physician and he came over to the US, with really nothing to do as resident after he did medical school in India and really with nothing and did his residency here. And then my mom and sister came over because my mom had just had my sister and they came over about a year later and like they really started from nothing in Toledo and really built, an amazing life for us. And he had an incredibly successful career. I would also say my mom, if I can cheat and say both of them, because my mom stayed home with us and raised us while my dad, was working. And I think a lot of people, because of that, think I take after my dad, which in some ways I do. But my mom, I think, actually is the reason I am the type of leader I am. And I've learned so much from her and the idea of being a servant leader. She is like a servant leader to everyone she knows. And that goes well beyond our family. And so I've been just really lucky to have parents like that instilled both a work ethic and, that drive, but also to do it while caring for others and do it with kind of a selfless attitude.
What was your dad's specialty?
He was a cardiologist. And I was pre-med at Notre Dame for about 3.5 weeks until I failed miserably my first chemistry exam and called home. And thankfully he was like, if you're not really passionate about doing this, we should probably find something else. And that's how I found my way to the business school. So,
wow. Is your mom still alive?
She is in Toledo, doing great. Was just out there for the 4th of July this summer. And doing awesome.
Is she a Notre Dame football fan?
Yes. She gets very nervous because my sister also went to Notre Dame. My brother-in-law went to Notre Dame. So we're all Domers. And one of my nieces went to Notre Dame. So we've got a lot of Notre Dame in our family, but she gets irrationally nervous. That's just the kind of person she is. And so she often will sit in a different room and just wait to hear what happened from us. So, but she's all in.
My dad was a big Phillies fan. He would just leave the room.
Yeah.
That's funny. So what's the second best stadium you've ever been in to watch college football?
Ooh, really good question. I was fortunate to go to an LSU Florida game down in Death Valley back when Tim Tebow was there, and night game, the whole deal. A buddy from business school, grew up in Baton Rouge, and he knew it was on my bucket list. So that experience, SEC night game in LSU was wild.
George, thank you. This has been wonderful. Went to all sorts of good places.
Yeah, I got to say, Jim, thank you so much. If you could tell the ABM on Old Spice that he was one day going to be on Jim Stengel's podcast, he'd have been blown away. Yeah, absolutely blown away. So
I'm very proud of you and Kevin, and you just do remarkable work that so many people are talking about. So the work really has inspired so many outside your category.
Thanks,
That's
Jim.
something to be very proud of. That's quite a legacy.
I appreciate it. Thank you.